Okay, coming up. Hey, Shane, thank you so much for being here today. So, Shane Pollin, you are the founder and principal of PS Ventures, and you've worked in the real estate ventures in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area for more than 20 years now. Shane is a leader in the sustainable building development movement, and Shane curates highly functional teams with a focus on functionality and durability in the built environment. Shane has a passion for building science and understanding how buildings interact with their environments, and an understanding of how heat and air and bulk water and water vapor interact within buildings, which is viewed as like a fundamental risk mitigation strategy to know and avoid these problems. Shane brings a natural ability to simply frame and persuasively communicate complex topics. So, hey, Shane, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. I was going to add some color to that and say that of all the developers that I've ever met, and I've met a few, Shane is by far the most serious about building science and teaches me all sorts of things. And I just love the interactions I have with him as a peer and a really significant development agent over in DC. So thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Sean. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. You're a little bit muffly, but you're good enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you for those kind words, Sean. And I was, as you know, thinking of you when I just got back from the Builder Show and sent you some information from the gas industry that had some nice slides there. And so I'm happy to be bringing a different voice, I hope, to the developer community than what maybe is often seen there. I'm going to stop sharing my video to focus on the screen share. So the topic, Sean asked me to focus on renters today. And I think that we always do that. And so it wasn't really a stretch to modify a presentation that we recently provided about Passive House, because what you'll see is our belief that Passive House is really beneficial to both owners and renters. And with that, I will jump in. So again, as Sean mentioned, my name is Shane Polin. I'm a principal of PS Ventures. It's a boutique development firm. I'm very fortunate to have worked on a series of increasingly sustainable projects over the last probably about 20 years. And Sean mentioned what PS Ventures really mission is, so I'll move on. My journey in high performance green building really started with the programming of my first high performance building. It was probably back in 2005 and 6. When we were programming, I was working with some members of my family who are multi-generational long-term real estate developers. And that, I think, helped inform my view in developing sustainably. It just made sense for a long-term holder. I found historically that merchant builders sometimes have different viewpoints. It's just a different approach. But when you're highly focused on first costs and not focused on value, it doesn't necessarily lead to the same results. I was fortunate with my family to be working on a series of projects of increasing complexity and increasing sustainability, from that first LEED Gold office building to the city of Frederick, Maryland, East of Market Apartments, first LEED for homes, different flavor LEED Gold building, to then LEED Platinum in office and retail, to LEED Platinum in hospitality and a hotel. So I'm very fortunate to have been able to learn about how to apply sustainable and resilient development techniques and building science to a variety of different project types. And that experience, fortunately, has led to our most recent project, which is a partnership between the family that I was working with for all those years. I'm now really working in partnership with my family and in partnership with our local affordable housing authority, being the champion of this high performance green building. The project we're working on now is in Silver Spring, Maryland. It's in eastern Montgomery County, Maryland. There's really not as much high performance and zero net energy building going on here on the East Coast as we see in other parts of the country, which is why also we've partnered with Sean to help bring us the knowledge and what's happening on the West Coast to projects like Hillendale. Hillendale is going to be all electric. It's a multi-building program, mixed use, mixed income, and it's going to be delivered in a single phase. And it's designed to reach the highest levels of sustainability, which we'll get to. And again, we're very fortunate to be working on this project in partnership with our local Affordable Housing Authority, which is the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County. Hillendale is going to be 463 homes in 2 residential buildings, 12-story towers. That's about 1,200 renters anticipated. And we are very fortunate to be piloting with HOC a mixed income averaging approach, where our county historically had provided affordable housing really only at 60% AMI, but that will not be the case at Hillendale. It will be a blend of affordable housing from 30% all the way through market rate housing. Our focus is building better than code minimum, and for us, code is IBC and IECC, but as we all know, there are better codes, voluntary codes to build to, and we are choosing to build to these standards. And ultimately, the real step forward for Hillendale is passive house. And once we've lowered utilities using passive house strategies, then we're within striking distance to try to achieve zero net energy on one of those 2 buildings. That 155 unit building, we are going to try to achieve zero net energy on a 12-story residential tower. We're doing that by borrowing the solar resources from the entire site and dedicating them to that building. This is the philosophy that governs why we develop the way we do. And at PS, we believe that we're not the inventors, right, of triple bottom line, but I think it appropriately describes our approach, which is we can build buildings that are better for people, better for the planet, and we can do so profitably. Again, even though our current project is a partnership with the Affordable Housing Authority, they are mission-based, but to the degree that that we have that profit incentive in there, that motive, it helps support HOC's mission so that we don't end up with purely affordable housing projects that require subsidy for decades to come. The mixed income model means that we're trying to develop in a way that the market rate portions of each property can, in a way, internally subsidize the affordable portions of the property, so that we have a longer term vision that doesn't require, again, that constant feeding. And so that's really something that HOC has helped really push, and we think it works. Now, transitioning, we talk about people. Who are some of those people? It's the renters, it's the tenants, it's the owners, it's our guests, it's the community. We can build buildings that are better for people. And as Sean asked me to focus on renters, let's talk about renters. And we can't really talk about renters, though, without talking about the owners. They're related. And so I want to obviously start with what I think is a very simple premise. And that is that happy renters lead to happy owners. I have fortunately been able to develop across that broad range of products because we've been able to demonstrate success. Prior to this project, purely on the, as Sean put, the Wild West market rate side. Hillendale Gateway will utilize LIHTC financing and lots of variety of financing and stack to make that work. But all those projects that you saw at the beginning were all done in the market rate environment where we believed in this fundamental premise. Whether the tenant is a residential tenant, whether it's a commercial tenant, happy renters or happy tenants lead to happy owners. Let's talk about why. Well, we believe simply happy renters lead to better reviews. So much, particularly in residential, in the market rate space, is review based. People want to know about a place. Information is available online, and whether you're shopping for a new pair of shoes or a new car or where you're going to live, reviews play an important role. So we get better reviews if the renters, our tenants, are happy. We would find lower turnover if tenants are. Why move someplace else if you're happy where you are? And we believe that renters have the ability to pay higher rent, a happy renter, particularly if they're saving money on utilities. The idea here is that the group who's losing when we save energy, we hope is the utility company, because we're simply not spending money that otherwise would have gone to utilities, and we're sending that where we think it can be shared between the owner and the tenant, and that makes it a win-win for both. So I don't think any of these are really hard to or refutable. I think it's clear that a happy renter would lead to all of these things. And then if you look at better reviews, lower turnover, and the ability to pay higher rent, well, better reviews leads to more demand. Lower turnover means lower turnover costs, and lower costs to procure and find new renters. And an ability to pay higher rent means that we can, again, share some of that savings with the owner as well. So it's a win-win. So we have, again, more demand, higher rent, and less costs. Well, more demand, lower costs, and higher rent means you have a higher net operating income. A higher net operating income means that we're going to have happy owners. So I think we've discussed how happy renters lead to, again, better reviews, lower turnover, ability to pay more rent, which leads to more demand, lower turnover costs, lower cost to procure new renters, higher rent, higher NOI, and happy owners, which only leaves us with the last question, which is, how do you make renters happy then? If it leads to this cycle, how do we start here? And with that, we're going to jump into what Passive House is and what we believe it brings to new properties, particularly residential. For those who aren't familiar, Passive House is the world's most rigorous energy efficiency standard. It's generally considered that. What makes it different, again, is it's really focused on comfort, health, and building energy. More so than what LEED is. There's some criticisms of LEED, which is a fine program, but you don't always end up with buildings built to the LEED standard, which save energy, because it's a point-based system, and some of the points associated with saving energy are more expensive. And so you don't often find folks choosing the most expensive points, and you don't therefore end up with buildings which consume as little energy as they could. We think, again, Passive House is a good step to zero net energy, because it's the first step to significantly reduce that energy standard, or that energy usage. If we want to read a little bit about what do we know about Passive House, if you do a survey of articles that have asked renters about their experience living in buildings built to the Passive House standard, you see some commonalities, right? No drafts, no cold spots, fresh air, not overheating, their energy sipping, right? This one, low-income apartments, it set a high standard for efficiency, again, free of noise and air pollution, prevents outside air temperatures from intruding, energy recovery ventilation for efficiency, again, more mention of health, better indoor air quality, again, another mention of reduced energy. It's a sanctuary, right? And it does seem like magic to a degree. It's building science, but it seems like magic. Minimal energy again, airtight, keeps in the heat, clean, fresh, filtered air. So you see some commonalities coming out here. No more smell, cleaner air, lower electric bills. Comfort would be for everyone if this was made a standard. And maybe residents hardly could pay a bill. They're tightly sealed, improved air quality. I encourage any of you just go out and look for, do a search for Passive House and see what folks who have experienced Passive House buildings, what they describe. And what you're often reading is really the tenant or renter's perspective, just as all these are lower utility bills, better indoor air quality, exceptional heat retention, again, comfortable again. How are they doing this? How are they staying so comfortable? More resilient, right? Comfortable all year round, reduced heat transfer, same themes, a pathway to highly efficient buildings, thermally comfortable, resilient, lower operating costs, right? So same themes again. Dwellings can last longer. Back to durability. Exceptionally quiet. That one we've seen multiple times. Safe and secure during storms. We'll get to that. Draft free again. Post-COVID, like a focus on health. The air is fresh. The air is filtered. And we're focused on, because we have balanced ventilation with heat recovery, you don't have the energy penalty typically associated with increased fresh air. So again, healthier, less isn't a temperature difference. There's temperature stability and there's temperature persistence, right? Improvements for folks with allergies. So what did we just hear, like in this survey of articles, and those are, some are very recent, but it's all the same theme that you read about. We're hearing about themes of qualities of comfortable, healthy, durable, resilient, efficient. Well, comfortable is a renter benefit, healthy is a renter benefit. Durable arguably is both, but we'll put it in the category of owner benefit. Resiliency, right? A renter benefit, efficiency. So here's what we've defined: comfort, lack of nuisance, pain, or unpleasantness in a space, a building that makes occupants feel content and secure. Well, what are we just read about or saw a bunch of articles on Passive House. We saw these themes: quieter, no drafts, fewer pests, fewer odors. I mean, every one of these is a benefit to the tenant, a direct benefit to the tenant, right? More fresh filtered air. We've seen issues with mold. Smell is the sense most linked to memory. And for those of us, and I spent some time living multifamily, you remember what, coming down the hall and what were your neighbors cooking and smelling that. So some of these are some top themes for multifamily houses and concern, like discomfort, allergens, pests, right? Noise. And so the elements of Passive House that we bring are helping to address some of the major concerns, always in the top list of concerns for tenants. Healthier, right? Same thing, quieter, no drafts, fewer odors. So all of these, again, healthy buildings, all for the benefit of the resident. I'm going to go through here quickly, but there are some studies that are out there that show that Passive House has fewer contaminants. Again, it's the idea that we have constant ventilation. We're filtering the air. We're always bringing in that puff of fresh filtered air. Other studies have shown that Passive House buildings, in comparison to other buildings, have far less pollutants in them. Again, I'm going to try to go through some of this a little bit more quickly, but the data is readily available. Again, durability, probably more an owner benefit, but arguably if the building is more durable and we're not seeing a lot of these problems, they'll relate back to those items like health and comfort that are tenant benefits. Resiliency, right? Maintaining stable indoor air temperatures in resistance to extreme outdoor temperatures. So while folks on this call might, of course, all be very clear and find that there's a global warming and climate change driven or drive for why to build better, frankly, in a lot of the developer community, that is not something that is compelling to very many developers. Not me, but to many. And what we're trying to do is show here that these benefits can flow to both the owner and the tenant. And some of these elements, like the durability, right? That's the long-term maintenance of a building, the resiliency of a building, and not having to address the fact that your building becomes uncomfortable or uninhabitable. Whatever the reasoning is, and I often, when I give this presentation, I don't focus on the causes of why the temperature outside is going to extremes. I think we all agree why and who's responsible. However, I don't think that it's necessary when we're talking about the benefits of Passive House to get into causation for climate change. We could just agree that the temperature outside has become erratic and extreme. And what we see in Passive Houses is that buildings built to this standard are better able to endure changes in outdoor temperatures, right? They're very persistent. Here's again a study that was done, and it was showing that the Passive House was able to buffer cold temperatures more easily than other buildings built to other standards. In other words, how long does it take from the time when you turn off the power? And they're having an episode of this, I believe, right now in Texas again, with another cold spell and power outage. And just as happened previously, homes, lose their heat quickly, become uninhabitable. And they do that really quickly. in comparison to a passive house. This is an image that shows that the green line at the top is the passive house, and you see that persistence of temperature, right? So your home remains habitable for far longer than if you were built to another standard. So again, efficiency, there's the split incentive that was mentioned earlier, but one way or another, if you're not spending the money on energy, it's available either for the benefit of the resident and or the benefit of the owner. And again, to give a little bit of a context to passive house, zero net energy, you know, in the passive house community, there's always a concern that you'll just throw more solar on it and the focus won't be on reduction of energy. Passive house is about that step to reduce the energy significantly, to lower the barrier for zero net energy. So I'm going to accelerate here. We've seen a bunch of characteristics of passive house buildings: quieter, no drafts. It's just these, I think this is 14 things. These are the themes, the characteristics that come out. Well, here are the elements that made that quality of comfort, or to make the building comfortable, right? We mentioned there's durable, these buildings are durable. It's some of those same elements. Resilient, right? Using less energy. So if we have a power outage and we're consuming less energy and we're in an energy limited environment, right? Using less of it makes us more resilient. And that persistence of temperature makes us more resilient. Healthy. And what you can see here, it's some of these exact same elements. Efficiency. And so putting it all together, we see that this list of 14 things really gets us a lot, right? It creates comfort, durability, resiliency, healthy, efficient buildings for just these 14 things. Okay, well, just as we said, what makes a renter happy, and we think these characteristics are what makes the renter happy, then how do you achieve these characteristics? And the answer to that, we believe, is passive house. It's super insulation, it's air sealing, thermal breaks, high efficiency windows and doors, balanced ventilation with heat recovery, and efficient building systems, right? And here we see on the other side, superior insulation gets you those elements. Air sealing gets you, every item on the list is impacted by air sealing. What do thermal breaks get us? High efficiency windows and doors, balanced ventilation with heat recovery, and efficient appliances. And there we see them all together. So we have the characteristics that we think make a happy renter, which will, as we started with our premise, lead to a happy and higher net operating income for the owner. And passive house and the strategies that it provides are the way to get there. Hillendale wouldn't be happening without a team. You can see Sean here on the right with the Redwood Energy. And so again, thanks to my team for really helping us to achieve what we hope is going to be a really landmark building in the state of Maryland. Happy to answer any questions.
Woo! Yay, Shane. So one of the questions I had for you was, what was your role in the Montgomery County policy that and has it passed yet for all electric construction? Because the press release, like when the local politicians were announcing they were going to ban gas in Montgomery County, which is one of the counties that borders Washington, D.C., right? They did it right in front on this job site. So how did that happen?
I think that, well, our county tries to engage with the developer community when it can to receive feedback. And so we have the Department of Environment will hold sort of stakeholder work sessions, which I've been a part of. I was part of a stakeholder work session for the adoption of the high performance tax incentive program. I was involved in the building energy performance standard enactment. So I think that the folks at the county understood what we were trying to do. And again, mostly we would historically be doing this in the market rate segment. And so I think when politicians have seen the writing on the wall, as we see for the future of gas and the banning of gas, they wanted to highlight a project that was showing that it's possible. I actually try to, because as you could imagine, being a developer who is supportive of banning gas and building to higher standards doesn't always make me the most popular developer among developers. And so I generally try, I feel like my role, and I'm often asked to speak or convince other developers of the merits of these ways. And just as you invited me, I'm happy to share the opinion, but I generally don't go out in an advocacy role. And I feel like my best role is to simply demonstrate the possibility of it. So to basically put the elephant in the room. And so I think that was where we came in with our partners at HOC to say, hey, what better place to help subtly or less subtly address it's not possible, it's too early, you can't build an all electric 12-story resident. How are you going to heat the water? How are you going to, and it's hard to ignore when you're standing in front of the site of one of those buildings that somebody has figured it out. And so I think that's how it ended up being there. They knew what we were up to. And we said, hey, look, we will not actively sponsor or speak to legislation, but we will speak to what we're doing, and folks can glean what they need to from the fact that we're doing it. And that's kind of how that happened.
That's a good story. Thank you for threading the needle. There is a technical question from Danuta Rodriguez. Well, I got the last name wrong, but the question was, are the mechanical, plumbing, and ventilation systems in this passive house project all central, or are some of them in each of the unit? And please talk about maintenance. So there you go, hot water, HVAC, and maintenance of it.
Great question. As Sean can tell you, we held a number of design curates over. This project has been in development for over 5 years. It takes a long time to get these projects through, particularly in our county. As to systems, we actually did tons of research early on, and are happy to report that the systems we selected all this time ago are still best practices. Running through them, we're heating water with a heat pump water heater. And I have a whole nother presentation on these systems, but it's a heat pump water heater. As you know, they cool and dehumidify. We're drawing that air from the hallway. So we put hallways to allow access to the hot water heaters from the common space. And then we're obviously passively cooling and dehumidifying the hallway air. A passive house building can tend to overheat. So we're because they're so well insulated and so well air sealed. So we're putting a complementary system, a heat pump water heater in a hallway in a building that otherwise might tend to overheat. For the HVAC, we are going unitary in that, unitized HVAC, a split ducted system, very simple. Sean has been a big advocate, and we are real strong advocates of doing this type of building most simply. So that's a 1-to-1, one condenser to one indoor air handler. The challenge, as you might know, is that the run lengths are only about 100 feet in a 12-story building. That does not get you to the roof or to the ground. Our solution is therefore to create a shroud. You see them sort of in the background here, these vertical stripes on the building. So there are 2 condensers on each of the balconies, and one balcony's condenser serves one unit, the unit that has the balcony, and the adjacent unit. For ventilation, we are using a neighborhood ventilation approach, so not unitary but at each home, not whole building, but an in-between where one relatively larger unit serves units on 2 floors, serves homes on 2 floors. That gives us access to those cores for those ERVs in another common area. So now we can service the hot water and the ventilation system all from common areas. And I think that's so no natural gas, high efficiency in appliances. Induction is our intent for the cooktops. Heat pump dryers. So I think that kind of captures the top. The wall is we're going for a standard EFIS exterior insulation finishing system as a way to invest in the envelope in a balanced way, because we're going to have passive house rated windows. And we've addressed all the things like thermal breaks and eliminating the bridging. I hope that answered that question.
You nailed it.
That's a whole nother, we could spend hours talking about the systems.
But that's great because, you know, for renters, you had unitized systems, easily controlled, as opposed to like central systems that can sometimes be hard to make it actually comfortable in your own residence. So Annie McNamara is here. So thank you, Shane. That was awesome. Woo!
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you,
Thank
Shane.
you all.